feel like society pushes modern women to do and have it all, but actually there's always trade-offs that we need to consider. And yes, you have options, but you're always going to have to sacrifice something. And so it's being clear on what you're willing to sacrifice at the different stages that you're at that will free you from this voice in your head that's, oh, but I can't do everything all at once. It's just going to really tear you apart.
Hey friends, welcome to Viet Boss Babes, a village podcast for modern Viet women around the world to listen, learn, and thrive in their daily lives. I'm your host, Mai Võ, and today we'll be diving into some real and honest conversations that I think a lot of us can relate to across age groups. And it comes around like navigating life, friendships, and career as you're reaching your late 20s as well as just in your 30s, which are all the topics that a lot of our listeners, if you're listening on this podcast, you're probably wondering how do I balance and how all of these pillars in life and how do I navigate them and have it all as well. And joining me today, I have my friend Mai Võ, who is the co-founder of Podium, a platform for connecting women based in Singapore. And previously, Mai was at Google in London and Singapore, and she was born and raised in Munich, but also grew up in Saigon. So Mai, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Just to quickly start off, what is your full name in Vietnamese and where are you from?
My full name is Võ Mai Liên, but I was born in Germany and I moved around a lot growing up. And in school, people just started calling me May. And so that's actually why I started using Mai as my name. And I have two sisters, and they're Hồng Liên, Mai Liên, and Thảo Liên. So they go by Liên. So I decided to be different and go by Mai, even though Liên is technically my name.
Yeah. The next question is, what is Podium? Give us a 30-second pitch.
Yeah, so Podium is a connection platform for modern women aged 20s to 40s. And a lot of us in this age range are navigating career pivots, non-linear careers, loads of life transitions, and personal growth as well. And stepping outside of our existing social or work bubbles to meet other women who also want more creative paths in their work, motherhood, if we choose it, and life in general, we know is really helpful for us to live life the way that we want as modern women and with the choices and options that we have. And so that's what we're all about. And we started off doing purely in person, very soulful gatherings in Singapore, where I've been based. But now we are adding in a tech layer to do things like matching members every month based on what they're navigating, what their professional or personal goals are, making sure that they meet the women they're meant to meet for whatever they're going through in their life.
Okay, that's really cool. I would love to dive into that a little bit more because I think all the topics that we'll be covering today is really on brand with Podium. But this is full disclosure, this is not a Podium ad. This is all just opinions. So it's just listen as you go. I guess with that, it's actually perfect for our theme. The first theme is just navigating friendships as adults. I think that in our, let's say when we're in school in early 20s, I feel friendships, at least for me, I felt like friendship was a group activity. You do the same thing, you take the same class, you graduate, you get your first job. It's like everyone is around the same milestones with 3-4 years caveat, but everyone was just on the same pool. But then I feel now that I'm in my late 20s and I feel talking to my mom more about friendships, I feel adult friendship is difficult or it's different because it's not a group activity anymore. People have different life stages, some want kids, some won't want kids, people move around. So I'm freaking out. I'm how do I navigate my friendships? So then how do you feel have you personally experienced that shift? What did that look like?
Yeah, definitely. I think when we're younger, we're almost friends by convenience first, as in you're in someone's class and you keep bumping into them, you keep seeing them. And then as a result, I think you do still get a relatively diverse group of friends, even though, of course, there's still probably different cliques, say, within the class, but there is diversity, I would say. And then as we enter our 20s and say we leave college and we start working, maybe then it's through work that we make new friends. and it's a lot more people who are similar to us. Or of course, there's older friendships as well. But as you say, people start navigating like different life things. They go through different life stages. And yes, for me, that also, I'm now in my early to mid 30s. I've been navigating this as well as moving cities. So I was in London for the start of my career, and then I moved to Singapore about 3 and a bit years ago. And now I'm splitting time between Ho Chi Minh City and Singapore. So I'm at this stage where I'm also reassessing my friendship needs and thinking about that. Yes, there are some old friends who I really cherish and I still keep in touch with, but what are my new needs for the woman that I'm becoming and the multifaceted identities that I've collected as a result of all of the different experiences I've had with work or with moving cities, and how do I make sure that I can bring that version of myself out time and time again through having people who allow that version of myself to continue growing. So yeah, that sounds a bit hypothetical, but just to like maybe make it a bit more concrete, in Singapore with my husband and we've been there for 3 years. But even here in Ho Chi Minh City, of course, I have my friends who I went to school with, who I love dearly, and some of them are like very much at the same life stage as me. But I still feel like, there's parts of me that wants to connect, say, with the London version of myself or the Singapore version of myself. And it's also about not just having to travel to those places, but finding the people here in Ho Chi Minh City when I'm here who I can talk to about certain topics or share different points of view that maybe some of my other friend groups are not as inclined towards.
Cool. Okay, so it sounds like adult friendship is a lot about like compatibility and like value alignment, which like I think in the early on when I start experiencing like friendship misalignment, I didn't really know what is compatibility. Do you mind like breaking that down? When you're like looking for a new friend, what are the things that you'd be looking for or you should be looking for? Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, right, when I'm nurturing my friendships, I'm either looking at the activities that we can do together or the topics of conversations that we can have with one another in order to grow as people together. And I think when you have, say, values aligned and also like almost aspiration aligned friends who, in my case, want to have a more creative path in work, but also be very present for a family that we want to build eventually. I think it's just different, right? To say someone who wants to be a stay-at-home mom. Nothing wrong with that. And of course, I still have friends who have chosen to be stay-at-home mothers. It's just that I also need other friends to bring out this other side to me. So I think that's where I really had to look at my needs as a woman and also my husband's needs as well, because sometimes now we have couple friends, just thinking about the people who can really push us in our aspirations and that we can navigate life alongside.
And so with that, then what happens to the friendships that you might have made in your early 20s or just different like stages of your life? What do you do with them? Yeah.
So it's interesting for me because in my 20s I was in London, and then
Mm.
in my 30s I was in Singapore, and now I'm in between Singapore and Ho Chi Minh City, tapping into friends that I knew when I was like a teenager. I think, of course, I still want to from time to time nurture friendships with people who I used to be very close to, but I feel like there's a bit less compatibility. But I think I'm also accepting that I don't need to force talking to them every single week and like seeing them all the time. And I guess some changes in dynamics is part of life. I think, of course, it's sad sometimes when you realize that you used to be really close to someone and you're not really spending as much time with them. But I think you just have to accept that it's going to happen. It's going to
Yeah.
happen more and more if you want to have a family. Even with my husband coming into the picture, of course, that changed the dynamic of some of my friendships. I need to prioritize some time for, say, couple friends now as well. And I think it's okay just knowing that's life. And if you can be respectful and still check in with each other from time to time, that's also perfectly fine.
I see. You mentioned building like new community when you like moved to Singapore for the first time, for example, and now that you've evolved into like a full-time entrepreneur, like you also need like that kind of friend. So then how do you build those communities from scratch when you move to the new city, or you like starting fresh in your new life like chapter? Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I've always had to be a community builder throughout my life because I think I moved around so much that going into a new city, I just really had to force myself to put myself out there. It helps a lot that I'm extroverted, and I know not everyone is. And aside from putting myself out there, and honestly, sometimes even like cold messaging people on, say, LinkedIn, when I was in my corporate career and trying to be an entrepreneur, I did do that. But aside from doing that, what's really nice these days in a lot of urban hubs and big cities around the world is that people are also craving the need for community and connection. And there are so many nice like communities popping up for women, but also like people who just want to meet offline, people who want to be on their phones less. Like I'm seeing it across Europe and North America as well, and slowly coming to Asia, including Singapore. And so I would just put yourself out there in that sense of being really open to trying to attend a few different things from different communities and just like comparing, see what you like, see who you meet. And you just have to let go of maybe this expectation that like going somewhere is going to be like good ROI for your time. Like just be okay with exploring and having this exploration phase where it's more about also you getting to know a little bit more like what you want as well.
I guess that's also why you started Podium. Did you find that there was a gap in the community in Singapore and you're like, I have to do something about this? Or like, how did it start? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was at Google for 5 plus years, and before that I was also in big tech. So when I felt that I really needed to leave Google and join the startup ecosystem, I think that was like the first trigger for me to realize, oh, but all my friends work in corporate. So who are the people that I can talk to about
Mm.
joining startups, about building startups? And so I had to put myself out there for that reason. But I think also as a woman, when you're navigating something professionally, it really helps to not just find people for like professional networking, but meet people that you can talk to about personal things too. Because especially in my 30s, I can't just silo my personal and professional life. They are really having to be integrated, and the decisions I make in one impact the other. And so for me, I also attended a lot of networking events and just like really wanted to see what groups of people were attending what types of events. And it led to me meeting a lot of people in startups. I then went to work for a startup for 1 year. They were like a seed stage startup. So going from like Google to early stage startup
Yeah.
was like a shock to the system. But luckily, I had built somewhat of a support system of people who also did this, or they also started companies to really help me through that. And then after 1 year there, I also now became a founder, and finding entrepreneur friends is also so important because it is quite different to working at a corporate. So yeah, I still see my friends who work in corporate. It's not completely ditched them or vice versa, but it's just more some conversations you really need to have with people who are also going through it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, as a professional community builder, what patterns or needs have you observed about how women seek friendships?
Yeah, so you know what? These days, I'm noticing that like acts of service really is what brings a lot of us close again. And this is because if we're living in really big cities, such as Singapore, such as London, where I was, our lives are like optimized for convenience, and we rely on apps more than we do on people to do stuff, right? And even get food and all of that. And sometimes you don't even know your neighbors anymore. And actually, that's just such a lonely way to live. And that's just not how we are meant to live as humans as well. We are meant to live in community and be able to support other humans and have them support us. And I think it's through supporting one another with actions that really brings you closer to another depth rather than just going out for coffee in the good times. And so for me, I think it's really evolving from this mindset of as a modern woman, I need to be strong and independent. Strong and independent is like the big catchphrase. Actually, no, I think it's about being strong but interdependent, about finding the people who you can support and they can also support you. And maybe like at this stage in your life, maybe you have a bit less to give, but just like where you can, and trust that eventually you can also give back to them. I think that's the beauty of making friendships in our 30s, when, especially as women, we do just need help and just gotta ask for it. And that's also how you can build trust and build friendship at a deeper level.
And then what kind of help do you find women often ask for?
So I think career is actually a big one in the age bracket that I'm in. Because of our closing fertility windows, we are forced to think about our careers in a way that I think men have a bit more time to think about. So in my case, I knew that I wanted to leave corporate also because it was probably the last few years that I could take more risks in my career for a little bit of time before I think about having kids. And so getting married was a trigger to entrepreneurship for me, because I knew that, yeah, soon I would maybe have to be a bit more sensible and I wouldn't be able to only prioritize my career anymore. And that's why I decided to start something of my own. For other people, it might be just switching jobs or industries, right? If you are coming up to that window of thinking of having a family, there's just so many more things that you need to navigate. And so that decision to either move country, move company, like you have to do it a little bit earlier as a woman, I feel. And there's just a bit more urgency. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I have so many questions around that because I feel like, especially with a lot of our listeners and a lot of the Vietnamese, like ambitious women, this is the generation when we can have so much. We can move city, we can move, take big career risks, we can travel, like think independently for a lot of people. And I feel like it just, personally, I've just felt, oh, I have to do everything before 30 or before a certain age. Do you find that deadline, is that a real thing? Is it something that you feel like is more like another societal expectations that is like being put on women right now? What is your take on that? Yeah.
Yeah, so firstly, on having it all and doing it all, I feel like society pushes modern women to do and have it all, but actually, there's always trade offs that we need to consider. And it's still something that I think we can support each other even more through, in order to know what trade offs are we willing to have at different points in our life to have the different things that we want at different times. Say career and motherhood, this is just one example, but in a career and a motherhood sense, in the same year, if you're like giving birth to a child, I think trying to do both of those things to even 100% would kill you. Like I've seen my friends really go through that transition. And I think this expectation that society and we have on ourselves to always balance everything, because it's modern life, you have so many options. Yes, you have options, but you're always going to have to sacrifice something. And so it's being clear on what you're willing to sacrifice at the different stages that you're at, that will make you, I think that will free you from this kind of like voice in your head that's, oh, but I can't do everything all at once. It's just going to really tear you apart. And I'm navigating that as well right now. So I feel like I have a baby that's a company right now. It's 14 months old, and I'm thinking about things like family planning. And I know that I'm going to take a, mini power pause where I also add having a child into my list of priorities, and I make sure that I make that happen, rather than I want to do that, but I also want to do this with my company and have two crazy goals for myself. I think it's about
Yeah.
switching. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like such a great way that you've phrased it, which is like, in a way, like you can have it all, just not at once.
Yes.
And it's yeah, like you want to achieve a lot in your career, you can have that. It's about time management. You want to be a mom, yes, like then put that into your timeline and then work around everything else. I feel like women are just so good at reprioritizing, and organization is almost like built as an instinct, like survival instinct to navigate this.
Yeah. And more than just time management, I think one key thing is energy management. That's something I've really learned in my 30s. The hard way, I would say. Your biology does hit you, your hormones and everything. And more than just managing your time, it's about knowing how to energize yourself for the different things that you need to face. If you're facing personal or professional things, it requires very different energy. And so to try to do both, to be, say, in your more alpha energy at work versus your more like womanly energy if you're like navigating even like dating or other things. Like sometimes they really clash. And so energy management and being aware of what can make us really face the things that we face as our best
Mm.
selves is key. Yeah.
And how do we manage energy better?
Honestly, the first thing for me was just like taking a hard look at myself and understanding myself more, and like personally turn to therapy. I also had a coach. Therapy and coaching are very different. I think therapy looks backwards a lot on reasons why you are the way that you are based on your past. And then coaching for me was really forward looking and helping me develop certain habits in order to manage my energy to be the woman that I want to be, both at work and in life. And so in the last 3 years, I've really dived into that, getting myself the support that I need to really understand myself, understand my triggers, understand, why I am the way that I am, and have this level, a better level of self-awareness. It's like a lifelong journey because you also change as a person. So I think as a person, I've had to get a lot more reflective. I've had to have a bit more me time to check in with myself, like, how am I feeling today? Where am I at? Do I think the goals that I'm working for are meaningful enough for me? And just really questioning if the way that you're living your life and your day to day is not just what society wants of you, but what you want for yourself. And that starts with knowing yourself through things like therapy, coaching, or even just like attending different events with other people who are in a similar boat of wanting to live their life more intentionally. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like energy management is so important because it's not just, compared to men, it's very linear, whereas for us it's not just like our daily energy, but also like our hormones and like balancing that, because every day you're entering a different cycle, like hormonal
Mhm.
cycles, and really leaning into that, like during this hormonal phase, how do I make the most of my week around with the energy that I have.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's something I'm shocked I only learned in the last like few years as well, right? Like I've been menstruating for so long, and only in the last 2 years that I know what the luteal phase is. So that time before your period, like you're meant to, in terms of say exercise, do a bit less actually because your energy levels are just a bit
Mm,
lower. And I just never knew that. I always thought, oh, it's when I have my period that I'm really tired.
yeah.
Actually, no, it's the week leading up to it. And so all
Yeah.
of these things, each of us show up a little bit differently as well, right, throughout our cycle.
Mm,
So it's just about understanding yourself and facing yourself. And I think in my 20s, I really was running away from myself. I was like doing too many things all at once, a lot of
yeah.
escapism, which I think is needed. It's like a rite of passage for me at that time. But I'm definitely trying to be more intentional and to live a slightly lower pace to do things with more depth, including getting to know myself.
And then with the new person that you've become and so on, how do you show up in the community that you're building right now?
Yeah, so what's nice about the community that I'm building with Podium is I needed this community for myself as a woman who is, really getting to know herself, thinking about how to go through the different life and career transitions and wanting to design her life in a more intentional way. I feel like the one thing that brings all of the people in our community in Singapore together is also that wish to live more intentionally, even though there's a mix of local Singaporeans and like foreigners as well. And we hope to scale beyond Singapore regionally and maybe globally one day. I think a lot of us really try to take the mask off when we're in different, say, like in-person gatherings with each other. When you like attend a networking event and you're just like in your work mode, yes, that is you, but maybe not the whole you. And so I really try to bring my whole self to the community when I'm hosting something, when I'm attending something, and I encourage others to do the same. And there's just such power in like almost being like really seen on our journeys and being able to express things and verbalize things out loud that maybe we haven't even fully finished thinking about yet. It just helps us make progress. So yeah, that's how I show up in the community that I've built. And even with my friendships, I'm trying more and more to not just have certain versions of myself show up with certain friend groups. I'm trying to bring a more whole me, a more, I don't know what the word for is, but integrated version of Mai to all the interactions that I have. And sometimes it's difficult, especially say if I hang out with people who really knew me way back and I hadn't seen them in a long time. But it's about having the awareness of how you've shown up in that interaction and how you want to show up and closing that gap.
Yeah, I think I love that answer. And then for people who are trying to show up more intentionally, I guess let's break it down for a little bit. Firstly, is what is intentionality? And can you give us an example of how like you show up and you have an intention, you show up intentionally?
Yeah, so intentionality, like you say, requires an intention, right? And to have an intention that you know is yours and not just what, say, your parents imposed on you or society imposed on you, requires you to firstly know what that intention is. So, say for me, I want to have a career that enables me to be creative, but also be flexible. And so, for me, the corporate path that I was on before wasn't really serving that. Even though I will say, honestly, getting into Google and everything made my parents so proud. And I think it was what a lot of my society as well wanted of me. But I guess I did an audit of what I felt I really wanted my life to look like. And I set the intention of what I wanted my life to look like in 10 years. And I realized, okay, the corporate path was not for me. So that's just one concrete example. But it doesn't have to be that big. It could be like, I want to be more active and I want to have accountability around that so that I am actually exercising 3 times a week. Am I spending time with people or am I spending time in spaces that give me motivation to do so, or am I not? That's also more than just a big career change, like a more simple way to live your life more intentionally with like smaller habits that you're building as well.
Yeah, of course. Mai, thank you so much for the sessions today and sharing your wisdoms. And so I have one more questions and then we're going to go into the Vietnamese Q&A. So the last question is if you could give advice to women in their 20s or 30s who feel the weight of deadlines and urgency, what would you say to them to help them feel more in control with their decisions?
Yeah, the first thing is consider getting your fertility checked and freeze your eggs if you can afford it, if that's something that you are open to doing. Because so for me, I just froze some embryo with my husband just like a month and a bit ago, and I think even that gave me a bit of peace of mind. And look, it's not an insurance policy, but I think it just helped you feel more in control of your timeline. So definitely something to think about. And again, maybe seek others who are thinking about the same and just get support to go through it together. And aside from that, just get to know yourself, face yourself. It might be uncomfortable, but like just get some support from people who either professionally do it, to like therapists, coaches, mentors, whatever, or find the right communities where people are wanting to also get to know themselves, and it'll push you to.
Okay, that's such wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Mai. And so before we wrap up, so I usually love doing a fun outro in Vietnamese with my guests. And so if you are listening to this episode on Spotify, check out our YouTube because I'll include English translation. So basically là em sẽ đặt ra 3 câu hỏi chớp nhoáng và chị Mai sẽ phải đưa ra câu trả lời nhanh nhất có thể và không được lưỡng lự. Chị Mai sẵn sàng chưa? Ok, so câu hỏi thứ nhất là nếu phải chọn một món ăn Việt Nam để ăn đến cuối đời thì chị Mai sẽ chọn món gì?
Mì Quảng. Ba chị là người Quảng, thành ra từ xưa đến giờ chị rất thích ăn mì Quảng.
So lovely, rất là ngon luôn. Và em hiện tại em chỉ biết ăn mì Quảng ở Hội An thôi, cũng chưa biết ăn ở chỗ nào khác.
Yeah. Hội An là cũng là ngon nhất rồi, nhưng mà ở thành phố Hồ Chí Minh thì cũng có vài chỗ như là mì Quảng Mỹ Sơn cũng khá là ngon. Yeah.
Ok, câu hỏi thứ hai là một cuốn sách mà chị Mai mới muốn giới thiệu cho mọi người là gì?
Dạo này chị rất là ít đọc sách, nhưng chị muốn giới thiệu cho mọi người một cái podcast là A Bit of Optimism của Simon Sinek, rất là hay. modern women.
Ok, và câu hỏi cuối cùng là slogan trong cuộc sống của chị Mai hiện tại là gì?
Bây giờ và ở đây. Chị
Wow.
cũng có đi làng Mai vài lần rồi. Dạo này chị đang muốn thiền nhiều hơn vì thấy cuộc sống mình rất là phức tạp. Bây giờ và ở đây, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. And how can the audience support you?
If you are a modern woman navigating things, go find Podium Society on Instagram, Podium_society. Just see what we're up to. I love your feedback as well. We will think about building this community in other places. And aside from that, feel free to reach out. I'm always up for chatting with other women going through things in their lives.
Amazing. I will leave my contact and Instagram of Podium in the description of the podcast. And thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.